Good morning. Day 3 on the AutoXandTrack Mustang transformation into a TCI corner carving machine. So I think I recapped yesterday, but just in case, we have fully removed all suspension components that are bolted in. The car is now down to a shell as far as suspension is concerned. All right, so we're gonna go through how to cut out the shock tower and install the TCI front IFS setup. Got this oil line kind of in the way, but there's a few things I gotta point out that are different on my Mustang than an OEM or stock application. So number one, there's a plate here you can see that's installed on both sides of this shock tower. This plate is an add-on, that's not original. So is this reinforcing plate here. There's a plate there, there's a seam, another plate around here. They really tried to reinforce the upper control arm mount to eliminate flex there. They also added a L bracket here on both sides. The full thing has been stitched and seam welded. And so normally you don't have any of that. And so you can get to more of the spot welds and draw out the spot welds. On the front here and the bottom. It's still probably easier though to cut the shock tower in half through here so that you can get to the shock weld, spot welds on the inside. You could come around and try and get to them. This is all filled with rubber and everything from racing, but get to the shock weld, the spot welds here. You can see another thing, this plate reinforcing is not stock. And this plate added to the tower itself, again, not stock. Tons of reinforcing done on this car to run the front suspension it had before. So there's a few things that I'll use the plasma cutter on that make things a little easier, but you know, you really don't need it, especially on an OEM shock tower setup. A cutoff wheel will kind of take care of it. So the order of operations will be to drill spot welds out on the bottom of the frame, including the front strut rod mounting bracket. Unfortunately, again, it's seam welded on the top, on the sides, here. There's tons of seam welds on this, but I'll drill out the spot welds. There's 3 or 4 in the front, 3 or 4 in the back. And then once all the spot welds are drilled out, we'll take a plasma cutter and we'll go right in the seam here. And we'll come right down and across on the top, down the other side. Now I did it right in the kind of center of the rounded part, knowing that we're gonna cut that down flush and put new plates over the top of it. So, but to avoid taking off too much metal, we'll go right down in the middle of the bevel. You'll see that's what it says on the instructions. You can already see a seam here that exists because this front end has been rebuilt a couple times from accidents. The car was salvaged when it was bought and turned into a track car the first time, and then the prior owner hit a wall on track. So it's been patched up a few times, probably part of why they went crazy with all this reinforcing. So yeah. Spot welds to drill out is pretty straightforward. You just need a drill and one of these spot weld bits. Trick with these is you just center punch the spot weld first, and then this will help guide the hole so you don't walk. And then you just want to push real lightly on these until you've got a good groove started. If you just go at it real quick, you'll break teeth, like on the back side. These are double-sided, so when you break teeth on one side, you unscrew it, flip it around, screw it back in. First few times, I definitely broke teeth really quickly because I was pushing too hard. So you just push very lightly at first to get a solid groove going, and then you can push a little harder afterwards. I also found, for me personally, I'd rather go a little bit too far and start to drill into the metal past the bracket, only because if you start to pull the bracket down and you're bending it all up, and then you find out you didn't get your spot weld drill far enough, trying to reapply this on a curved surface is a total pain in the butt and probably won't work. We'll start with trying to drill spot welds on the front strut mount and the lower shock tower brackets, and show some video of that. I want to take a break in the middle of cutting out this shock tower to just talk about some quick lessons learned from doing this that might save people watching this video a little bit of time in the future. It's already been several weeks since I cut out the passenger side, and some of the stuff is coming back going, oh yeah, and I had to kind of relearn it again. So before I forget, I just want to talk through a couple things. The easiest thing to do is cut the shock tower out from the wheel well. You've got totally free room. You can get the bevel. You've got good line of sight around everything. I started to do it on the engine compartment side and was having trouble getting the angles right because the head of the cutoff wheel would hit. Also, between a plasma cutter and a cutoff wheel, I honestly think that for the upper part of the shock tower, you're better off using a cutoff wheel. It leaves a lot cleaner edge. It requires less to clean up. So having done the plasma cutter on the passenger side and then did the cutoff wheel angle grinder on the driver's side, I will say I'm probably a bigger fan of the angle grinder. I mean, there's still some stuff because I didn't scribe a line in it ahead of time. There's still some areas I'll have to go back and clean up. But we'll go ahead and cut it in half here, and then that should take care of the upper part of the shock tower. So then we'll have to go back through. I've already drilled out all the spot welds on the bottom of the frame rail and the lower control arm and motor mount bracket. So let's cut this off. There'll be some other spot welds on the engine compartment side that I'll need to drill out, and then we should pretty much be done taking the shock towers out, and then I'll cover some of the prep we do on the frame rail here afterwards, just to allow us to box and reinforce the strength of the frame rail. All right, that shock tower is out of the car. So we now got a nice big hole to match the other side now. And still quite a bit of work though to go. Got to trim up the bottom of the shock tower here to make it flush with the frame rail. And that's the easy part. The harder part is we got to still take the motor mount, lower control arm mount off. Because these plates are in the way, I can't drill out the spot welds on that side. So what I'll do is make a cut down there and across. Same on the other side, down and across. And basically, I'm gonna cut this thing off flush with the frame rail. Then I can go back with the grinder, grind out some of these welds, which will allow me to pry this plate off. And then I can get to the spot welds to finish taking that off and the bottom piece off. And then we got to clean up the extra brackets that they welded on here. There's 2 spot welds for the shock tower on each side, here and here. So we'll drill those out and pull that sheet metal off. Then go through, clean up the edges and clean up the spot weld plugs from the frame, and this thing will be ready for reinforcement. All right, we got most of the shock tower and associated brackets removed. Now it's time to clean up spot welds and some of these other random welds that are left over from where the previous owner seam welded everything, and prep the frame rail. So the last major thing is this lip right here. We're gonna cut down to be flush with the top of the frame rail so that it can be boxed and reinforced like it is right here on this side. So you can see how that's done there. You know, if you enjoy these videos, go ahead and click that red button down below and do me a favor and subscribe. Click the little bell too while you're at it. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching.